Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. You're looking at a picture here of Trump Tower with Donald Trump doing the lion's paw gesture here with his hand. And I did an entire video for you yesterday about Freemason gestures, signs, and symbols. And the previous day, I showed you a behind the scenes tour with a couple of Mormons talking about the Mormon Masonic connection. Masons and Freemasons are the same word. So if you're interested in that, take a look. I thought it was very interesting that the first of the three levels of Freemasonry in the Blue Lodge, the first level is called the Apprentice. And here you have it's called The Entered Apprentice. And here you have The Apprentice, the TV show by Donald Trump. But this video is actually about Trump Tower because I seem to read a lot of comments from people saying that Charlie Kirk's father, Robert, actually built Trump Tower, or that it was his own architecture firm that actually designed and built Trump Tower. So you know me, I like to do a little digging, and I'm going to share with you what I found, and it's quite astounding. This is another view of Trump Tower. Of course, there's the globe in front of it. That's another Masonic sign. And here is yet another picture. Well, I'm giving away the punchline a little bit early, but as you can see, Trump Tower was designed by Der Scoot. I believe that's the correct pronunciation. So it reminds me of that telephone game where you say a phrase into someone's ear and then they repeat it to the next person, and on it goes until the last person says what they heard and it doesn't match up what was heard in the beginning. And I think that's what's happening here with this mistaken idea that somehow Charlie Kirk's father, mysterious as he may be, since it seems like no one has ever seen him, and he certainly has remained quiet all of these weeks in the aftermath of the, how do I put it, the Utah incident. Yes, also a hotbed, not only of Mormonism, but of Freemasonry. And we are told that Robert Kirk is an architect whose firm designed and built Trump Tower in Manhattan. Let's see how this little tidbit got going. Pretty much a rumor, I would say. Wikipedia, not that I'm a fan of Wikipedia, but most people go to Wikipedia, and I actually did on September 10th to try to figure out more about Charlie Kirk. Many people told me they had never really heard of Charlie Kirk until a few weeks prior to the event in Utah, and then Charlie Kirk videos started popping up as suggested videos in their social media stream. So here it says that Charles James Kirk, not to be confused with Captain James Kirk of Star Trek, that his father, Robert W. Kirk, is an architect who was involved in the construction of Trump Tower. Now, let's camp out here for just a moment, because I also want you to see that Wikipedia says that his mother, Catherine, her maiden name was Smith, is a former trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and then she became a mental health counselor. Now, this is significant to me. Think about all of the events that have been pushed into the mainstream media merry-go-round, and there's always that mental health angle. There are some kind of gun nuts running around, some veterans that need mental health, and maybe some individuals that think they were women, although they were born men, and were told they need mental health. And then we heard from some Christian pastors saying that the trans people should have the guns taken away from them, and that veterans should be screened for mental health issues. And of course, it's the government that's going to take care of that for you. You probably heard in the state of Illinois, interestingly, that's where Charlie is supposedly from, Governor Pritzker recently made mental health screenings mandatory for all students entering Illinois public schools. How do you like them apples? Now, when it comes to architects, I thought that was very interesting, because here we have probably the most well-known Freemason symbol. And this is the compass and the square, and the G in the center, G Willikers, we're told that the G stands for geometry and also the grand architect of the universe. There are probably hidden meanings for that G, but that's what we are told in public for those who are not the adherents of that secret society. But I thought that it was interesting that the mention or the profession of Charlie Charlie's father, is as an architect. To me, that is a clue. That's significant. It could be what's called a tell or a calling card. In other words, maybe indicating that this was an entirely manufactured, orchestrated event, especially since there was no geyser of blood. There was no blood trail. There was no blood splatter. All of the actions of the bodyguards were quite strange, pouncing on an injured man without even assessing what the injury was, carrying him off, potentially doing more harm, and then no blood trail, no medical report, or even medical information from whoever it was that took care of him. None of that information came out. Yet we're told with these other bang bang events, we immediately have a whole history of the person who did it, including their family and their extended family and how they got the bang bang and all of that. But there's nothing to be told about Charlie Kirk and the medical attention that he received. Not to say there was no bullet ever found, and there was no burial, and there was no body that anyone could see other than that creepy photo that was posted on Instagram by his so-called wife, Erica. Yes, that's it. So it's interesting to me because Freemasonry has infiltrated politics, media, the military, law enforcement, sports, entertainment, and more. Basically, any of those professions, you can rest assured that there are Freemasons, and we know them by their symbols and insignias and their gestures. And I have done several videos for you in my Charlie Kirk playlist all about that. The fact that Freemasonry regards God as the architect of the universe was very significant to me when I saw that Wikipedia told us that Charlie's father was an architect. Now here, People magazine took it a step further. Not only did they state that Charlie's mother was a mental health counselor and his father was an architect, look near the bottom here of the screen. It says Charlie's father was an architect whose firm designed the Trump Tower in New York City, compared to Wikipedia, who simply said he was involved in the construction. Well, I did more digging and I could find nothing to corroborate this. Remember, I do not take things at face value. As intriguing as it may be that Charlie Kirk's father had a connection to Trump, just like Erica Kirk had a connection to Trump before she was married to Charlie, appearing in, I was going to call it a fashion show, but it was actually the Miss America pageant and the Miss Arizona pageant, which she just happened to win. So yes, there definitely was a connection between Erica Trump. Oh, excuse me. That actually was a slip of the tongue there. Erica, because isn't that interesting? There's Eric Trump. I just put that together. I'll have to make a note of that when I do my video, What's in a Name? Because we know all about the Tylers. We've got Eric and Kirk, which basically share the same letters. And then there's Eric Trump and Erica Kirk. I find that very interesting. And we were told that Charlie Kirk is the Man of Steel. Superman's initials, CK, like Charlie Kirk, Clark Kent. And then Erica's middle name is Lane. Erica Lane, just like Lois Lane. Oh, friends, what do you think about that? So I did a little more digging and I found out, especially after I saw comments like this, his father, Robert, was one of the main architects for Trump Tower. There's the telephone game. Jonathan took what other people said and he embellished it to say he was one of the main architects for Trump Tower. Well, I'm going to refute that with some evidence. Here we have Der Scoot. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And here he is over here. And there's Trump, very young. And there's Trump standing in front of the mock-up, I guess it's called, or the model of Trump Tower. And here is the information. Der Scoot, and he was quite famous, by the way, was an American architect and a designer of several major buildings throughout New York City and the United States. Scoot worked on Trump Tower next to the Tiffany and Company flagship store on Fifth Avenue, New York City, developed by Donald Trump. I don't see any mention of Robert Kirk at all. He's never mentioned. In fact, no internet search turns up any connection of Robert Kirk or his firm working on Trump Tower. Now, I suppose you could say maybe he, I don't know, drew up some designs or whatever, but stick with me because I'm going to show you something even more astounding. Now, when I read this article from People magazine online, it had a footnote, and the footnote, as a reference, took me back to Wikipedia. And here, this number 7 reference took me to People magazine. So that is just going in a big circle, and there is no evidence and there is no original source of that information. So here we have, this is from a website all about architecture, and I will have a link for you in my Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. And it's also right here, Der Scoot is a lead architect at Swanky Hayden Connell Architects. And he is the one who designed the skyscraper to express towering ambition. Since its construction in 1983, this has functioned as the corporate headquarters and visually represents Donald Trump's larger-than-life personality. So there's Trump Tower, there's Trump Tower, and there's Trump Tower. Again, Trump doing the Masonic lion's paw. Frank Turek, who is the mentor of Charlie Kirk, has done that. And I showed you in yesterday's video other variations of that. So let's go a little further. And as I say, there's no record of Robert Kirk working on Trump Tower, but wait until I show you what I found. This is LinkedIn. This is Robert Kirk's LinkedIn page. Let me know if anyone else did that. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one that went there. And it all adds up because it's Arlington Heights, Illinois, which is where we're told Charlie grew up. And this is a caricature, kind of a cartoon drawing. It's not a photograph. And if we look at the actual photograph, let's see, of Robert Kirk, it's possible that's the same person, the balding gray hair. We'll talk about this very strange image in just a moment. So to me, it seems like I got the right guy. What say you? Look at this, friends. There are 10 followers. If you are a world-renowned architect designer who designed Trump Tower in 1983, don't you think you would have a few more than 10 followers on LinkedIn? I find that very strange indeed. And 8 connections. My understanding is that LinkedIn is for people who want to get business contacts or network or something. So he certainly is not very active there. I couldn't figure out when he made that account, but what I did do is I found out that the name of his architecture firm is called Group A Architects. So what did I do? I did a little more digging. Here it is, Group A Architecture. And here's the actual website. You can click through, here's the featured projects, and guess what? None of the featured projects say Trump Tower. In fact, let's see, let's look at commercial. Now, you could do a little more digging and see if these are actual buildings. They almost look like they are just images, AI. Maybe these were design concepts. I don't know if these were built or not. If anybody wants to do a little more digging on my behalf, here are some residential properties, some multifamily properties. Again, this definitely is a rendering. This is not a real picture. So nowhere does it say that this architecture firm of Robert Kirk was involved in building Trump Tower. So friends, would you do me a favor? When you're on social media and somebody says, Charlie Kirk's dad designed and built Trump Tower, would you direct them to this video, which I'm going to title, No, Charlie Kirk's father did not build Trump Towers. But this is what's more interesting to me of all. Look at the logo. Do you see what I see? What does that A remind me of? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the square and compass of the Freemasons? It's just a wild guess. But it also reminds me of the logo for the apps store for Google or Apple or whatever. They hide this in plain sight. The G for Google is the same as the Masonic G. The old image of Gmail with the M is like a Masonic apron, and on it goes. So that to me is what I thought was the most interesting of all, is that Charlie Kirk's father's architect firm, if it is indeed up and running and in existence, really is giving off a Freemasonry vibe. Now, when we go back to the homepage, there's a phone number. I guess you could call and ask him if he designed Trump Tower. Now, I find it also interesting on the homepage, there is a pyramid building. I'm not saying this building doesn't exist or that this company is not in business. You might like the logo, but you do know probably by now that pyramids are one of the most recognizable symbols of Freemasonry, not to mention Egyptian mythology and magic and all that stuff. So there you have it. It's called pyramid, and you've got the three circles there creating that pyramid. I thought that was very interesting indeed. As I say, here we are. Could all be a coincidence. Maybe Robert KIRK is really just humble and he doesn't want to say that he built Trump Tower. So nowhere on this information does it say that he in any way was involved at all. I think that would be significant if he was. But it is false that it's his firm that designed Trump Tower, because that accolade goes to Swanky or Swank Hayden Connell Architects, with Der Scoot, a very well-known architect in architect circles, is the famed architect and designer. So what I want to do is ask you, what do you think? Why do you think they planted that? Do you think that is just a rabbit hole for people to go down? Now, what I also find is interesting is there is no verifiable, credible photo other than this one, which is woefully photoshopped, as I broke down in previous videos. Remember, I have an entire Charlie Kirk playlist. So if you want to know about Erica Kirk, if you want to know about Freemasonry, if you want to know, why would Charlie do it, Peggy? I already answered that for you. So please watch those if you want more info. But wouldn't you think in this day and age of social media, cell phones, everybody taking videos of what they ate for lunch and all of that, Charlie himself has an inordinate number of pictures putting on and taking off his daughter's shoes, which is creepy to me as well. Taking off shoes is a Freemasonry gesture and symbol as well. So I find that very strange. But just look at the picture itself. This very blurry image of the mother, excuse a little frog in my throat there, of the mother's blue dress. And then Charlie, obviously that's like somebody else's head pasted on there. And of course, on the outside, it's very easy to Photoshop and add people to the outside. It's very bad, especially AI could do something much better. So looking at a close-up, that doesn't even look like Charlie. His teeth are completely different. That's what he looks like. So, and I know many of you were asking me if I think he was wearing a mask. And it's hard to say because these images are quite odd, but there is a video called CIA's Mission Impossible Masks, Real Spy Tech Revealed. I will have to break that down for you in a different video. For some reason, I am unable to access YouTube today. Every time I want to do a video, it tells me playback is disabled. Hopefully this video will be airing fine and you'll be able to watch it without any interruption. I want to thank everybody for being on board. Please spread the word that no, Charlie Kirk's father did not build Trump Tower. Der Scoot did. I just like to set the record straight. I'm one of those people that doesn't want to let it go until I understand and can connect the clots. And that's why I find this entire Charlie Kirk incident so fascinating, because I like to get to the bottom of things. And there are so many things that don't add up here. And that's why I am sharing with you what I've learned. And I've learned so much from all of you as well. So please leave me a comment, hop on my free Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the very next broadcast.